Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV, and today we are looking at Tekno, the drum synthesizer by Baby Audio. It has a bunch of unique engines to generate each one of these drum sounds. In this particular track you heard with these sorts of drums is one I just dialed in from the initialized preset. The presets are very good. I went through and earmarked ones that actually work well with this particular little groove that I wrote, and I want to show you possibly one of my favorite things about this, which is a little ironic because it's not the actual synth, it's the way it works with FL. They totally took the time to properly set this up. So if you load up one, so let's say we load up a Tekno, fresh Tekno, right? We're gonna write some MIDI, do some things. We're gonna go to a fresh pattern, right? If we come down here and go to the piano roll, look at this. It has the MIDI correctly named in the piano roll. You don't have to go searching for it. I can't even remember the last time I came across a plugin that did this. And it's just there. You want the kicks, you know, there they are. No hunting for where they are, no hunting for the octave. They're just right there. They repeat so that if you want to use like keyboard to play in the drums, you can do so. But this left a very, very strong first impression for me. Immediately positive. The other thing when I opened it up that I was like, oh, this visual over here is pretty cool. But it doesn't have like a sequencer built into it. So I was trying to figure out how do you get the octagon, you know, to move to the next one. I was like, maybe they're different sounds, but they all actually trigger their color. And the way it works is actually when you hit play, it moves around like that. And then these sub areas are, I believe, the 16th notes. And then the colors actually merge. So that's how the visualizer works. It definitely made me extremely inquisitive on how this worked because I was like, maybe they have a sequencer in here somewhere. But yeah, that's how that works. Let's go ahead and go back to our main one. And I actually have one that I can screw around with without worrying about messing up the one that I dialed in. So if we go ahead and play it though, you can sort of see it move around. It looks quite nice. If we listen to some of these different drum grooves. This particular track really benefits from tighter drums, but they do have longer ones. Like the very first preset you load up by none other than Richard Devine has a sort of a more long, those sorts of drum sounds. And so each one of these sounds has its own engine. Some of these sounds I tend to use a lot more than others, and I went ahead and wrote a little breakbeat style type deal. Because I think it shows off a little bit more of the sounds and the way I'd kind of use them. There's bits with a crash, bits with a ride, like a rim shot going on, that kind of a deal. So let's go ahead and dial in some sounds. So we'll just go ahead and go to the init. And these tags on the side, you can click and choose one of 4 colors. So the super fast tour of this is you have your different synthesis engines here. I choose to call them synthesis engines because they have their own synthesizer down here, and A and B are not the same. They're going to have different things in them, and they're tailored for one sound or another. Like B is the longer sort of 808 style things, and A would be like your like clicky or snappy or kicks, for example. And you'll see them actually change down here. In the synthesis engine, you can click a cog to open it up, and you may have some additional parameters. And anywhere you see these little dots means you can randomize that particular thing. We can see it changing over here. If we click the 5 dots on here, it changes. If we click it on here, it'll change everything about this sound. We can see a bunch more change. Each engine also has its own set of effects. And if you go through the manual, they talk about each engine and the particular signal flow it follows and why they chose to do it that way. But there are a series of effects to help you get the sound that you're looking for. And then you get into sort of the master area where you like panning, level, ducking, that kind of stuff. And then finally, there are some master sliders. And my favorite among these is the cutoff control because it makes doing master filtering like this extremely easy. You could always go in and add a cue after, but I find myself touching this a lot more than I thought I would. So I have this synth line, which by the way is the BA1 on the brass square preset. I think I adjusted it a little bit with like how it glides or whatever, but it's more or less the way it is. And we are going to go ahead and activate this second Tekno, which has this drum pattern. These are the same drum patterns. This is just on a safe one I can mess with. And let's go ahead and find a section where stuff sort of grooves. And, you know, I'm not using every element. I'm just using some of them, but I just kind of want to show you the workflow. And let's go ahead and shrink this down. So I'm not constantly clicking one over the other. It does resize very smoothly. And I am using kick A on this. So let's go ahead and first dial in the kick. So I'm going to go to the kick, and say you want to work on just one sound, you don't want to hear all the others, you can go over to this area where it shows the solo mute. We're going to go ahead and just solo it. We're going to bring the frequency down, length up. We'll bring the shape somewhere just a little higher. Maybe bring the length down a bit. This is the click, and then tame. And then they have these really nice nudge options that nudge to a frequency or a pitch. So right now I'm around the pitch C, and my track is in C, so this kind of works out nice. All right, that's pretty nice. The next one we're using here, I'm going to unsolo it for the record, just so you know. Don't forget to unsolo. We're going to go over here to the clap. I used the clap on one of these patterns a little bit more than the others, but this is our clap. Let's go ahead and bring our hands. Spread's fine. Early, we'll bring in. Late, we'll bring up. This is a high hands. I want a little bit more crisp. Then we'll try a low frequency and a high frequency. So I actually think 1K works pretty well for this. And then over here we have these effects. I didn't really touch this on the kick. You have things like the disperser, which always sort of adds this like almost laser-like element to it. An exciter. Let's grab the saturator. Bit of compression and some verb. Bring that down a little bit. I think that's pretty fine. Let's take a look at this snare. It needs some help. So we'll go to the snare, size. I'm bringing down the sizzle. And then on this, I'm going to bring saturation way up and compression up, exciter up. And with disperser, some helps. Like, but I wouldn't go too far. You go to any higher, you get the laser. A little bit of verb, just a smidge. Hear it in context. And there is this second one that I tend to use as a layer. So again, I'm going to bring the disperser up a bit. A little bit of verb, a little bit of compression. Well, this is actually a fair amount of compression. This one, we will use the pitch tool, get us towards maybe a G. That could work, possibly. It can go down to a C. We'll stick with a G. You can hear our layer, so I added them both to the solo bus. Maybe somewhere around there. The hat, I actually really like how this hat already sounds, so I might leave this alone. But, you know, let's try. I'd like to bring up saturation and maybe a little bit of verb. Yeah, we won't touch ring oscillate, the ring effect in here. Ring modulation, I should say. Yeah, if you're wanting glitchy stuff, hat's where you're gonna kind of want to visit. Maybe just make it a bit shorter. Give it some verb as well. Go to the rim shot. Yeah, so the rim shot exists over here. I did not adjust this one, maybe at all from it. The click is fine. I don't want it to be like a forward sound. Maybe you bring it down a bit. These can be fun things to automate as well. Let's hear that in context. Let's put in the actual bass sound. I think I'm gonna leave the toms alone, but you kind of get the idea. This is the workflow. And you can come in and sort of sculpt the sound exactly how you want it. I think a lot of the presets are really good starting points if you're looking for a good place to get going. But that is Techno by Baby Audio. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.